Cry-Not, Weep, Nitty Bomb. It's time for another installment of Visions of Cybertron. I'm your host, Sharon. This is
Morgan.
I'm Darren.
So, boys, I'm going to pose a hypothetical question to you. When you're talking with other people in fandom, whatever fandom you choose, and you happen to talk to female fans.
There are female fans? When did this happen?
You've only been sleeping with one for 28 years.
Oh, yeah.
Thought experiment, gentlemen. You talk to a girl who's into the same thing that you are, fandom-wise, be it Star Wars, Transformers, Warhammer, whatever, and you figure out that she likes characters that are villains. What's the first thing that comes to your mind, or that you and your friends say?
Of course they'd be into the bad guys. Girls like bad boys.
They just like the bad boys.
Yeah. How familiar are you guys with existentialist philosophy?
Or dabble.
Okay. In general strokes, what do you know about it?
Basically, it's about thinking of yourself outside of yourself.
In general terms, you have the idea of the self. And that is the default setting for everything. The world is normalized by the idea of self. And then there's other. That thing that's outside of yourself. That thing that is not normal and proper and...
Right, because we all think of ourselves as the way the world should be.
Right.
Like us.
Yeah.
It's a preservation mechanism.
Yeah. So, in the world of science fiction fandom and action figures and marketing, who are action figures marketed to?
Traditionally, people think of action figures as a male-dominated market.
Yes, it's boys' toys. So, you have boys playing with Transformers, Star Wars, video games, whatever, and then you find a girl that likes it. What is that girl?
The answer to my prayers?
See, you're smart. But then you have the ones that say, well, how come you like Transformers? Transformers are for boys, and you're a girl. And so what is that girl? The other. Now, you're supposed to identify with your heroes, or with, you know, in the case of Transformers, the brat human characters that are running around with them. And so that is supposed to be like you. And then the bad guys are the other. So you see where this goes. Girls kind of get automatically dumped into that bucket with the other, along with the bad guys. And so, ew, you have cooties, you know. So I actually remember a classmate in 3rd grade messing with me after lunch. He was sitting behind me, and just to get on my nerves, he started calling me Megatron. And I just remember drumming my fingers on my desk and imagining that my hand was Megatron's hand, and wishing that I could just stand up and pick up that fusion cannon and turn around and blast him.
That's awesome. That's worth animating, you know. That's a fantasy sequence that needs to happen. Live action morphs into animation, and then you stand up and vaporize the thing. That's awesome.
So, you had mentioned something earlier about when you have this idea of what is normal and what is expected, and what self should be, what, you know, the status quo should be, and then you have the other, you have what bucks the system.
And you see, your bad boys always buck the system. And when you consider that even to this day, the women in our society are having to find a place beyond the traditional 1950s and before stereotypical place.
Mm-hmm.
The woman that wants to be progressive and do for herself is bucking the system. So she's going to be attracted to that bad boy, that villain, whatever, that's doing the same thing she wants to do. Because they're strong enough and brave enough to do it. And she's going to be attracted to that.
Yeah, And there's something else too, and this again also comes from existentialist philosophy. When you start to learn a little bit more about it, you realize how much that underpins a lot of thinking to come out of the 20th century. Even second wave feminism is very much built on that, because The Second Sex, the book, was written by an existentialist philosopher, Simone de Beauvoir, and she's the one who pioneered that idea of the female being the other. That's why they are the second sex, not the first.
Right.
Well, another part of that philosophy is the idea that nobody's destined to be anything. You know, in that idea, Megatron wasn't destined to be evil. He just chose to be that way. And women are not destined to be anything. They can choose to be whatever they are. And there's this idea in existentialism of searching for authenticity, for your real self, and not engaging in bad faith, which is to do what everybody thinks you should be doing. And actually the example that Jean-Paul Sartre gave was, it was either Sartre or Camus, who gave the example of a waiter, and they behave as a waiter is supposed to act, as opposed to what they feel a waiter should be. And there's a whole thing about that. But think about that with the bad guys, because there's all the societal norms, and well, nice people don't do these kinds of things, but the bad guys, they do what they want.
Right.
And think about, like, my favorite character, Starscream. There's that idea of the Autobots. They're supposed to be they say you're supposed to be nice and this and that, but then you have a second set of expectations. Megatron, you're mine. You serve under me, so you're supposed to kowtow to me and do what I say. And Starscream's like, I'm going to do my own thing, and damn you. And as a kid, somewhere, I really resonated with that. And his, just wait, I'll show you. That was, what I gravitated to. And I'll even say this. My ex-friend, who championed the Decepticons in, her own particular way, even in her own way, was searching for authenticity. And she saw Megatron as pursuing his own authenticity, built as it was on domination and revenge. Still, in her eyes, it was a form of authenticity.
But then that brings up the question, all right, if we're all searching for our authentic self, but that authentic self is destructive and harmful to those around us, then wouldn't it be better to be inauthentic to ourselves, or at least try to find a way where we can be authentic to ourselves in a way that doesn't manifest itself in such a hostile nature?
That's an excellent question, and that's something that, believe me, on Usenet, that got debated around and around and around, and that
By
is
people who had no clue or no education to do so.
well, especially if you're going to invoke things like psychology or philosophy or whatever. And personally, I think that's where philosophy runs into its limitations. Because you can have someone like Ayn Rand do thought experiments all day long about all that and okay, whatever.
Thought experiments. Let me drive myself crazy.
Yeah, but
If anyone would like a nice rebuttal to Ayn Rand and why her objectivism would never work, go play the game BioShock.
oh, there you go. But that's the limitation of philosophy, is because when the rubber meets the road, you run into limitations.
Right.
And so that's why I'm saying that you do hit the problem of well, you've got to be able to play nice with others. So searching for your authentic self, you have to find a way to do it, within a system. But that's where fictional characters make such a good release. And that's where you have things like, okay, with the 50 Shades of Grey books is a great example. There was a debate when the first movie was coming out, and people were like, "Oh, hey, these crazy books, they're a thing." And I love what our friend Dreadclaw said about they ended up driving up the sales of other books on Kindle as well, because what would happen is somebody would buy 50 Shades of Grey, then they would buy 2 or 3 other titles afterwards, so that when you look through their Kindle, you see these other titles first, and you'd have to scroll down to get to 50 Shades of Grey. After the books had come out, and the movie was on its way, and it was the topic du jour, people ask the question, this is an abusive relationship. How are people enjoying this? Is this encouraging people to have bad relationships? You know. Well, I think there's kind of a twofold answer to this. Because you can have people, we know your cousin and his wife have a beautiful relationship. They're equal partners, and love the 50 Shades of Grey books. I think they'd even talked about building a red room in their house, and you know that didn't happen because they have kids. You know, but
yeah.
It was kind of a funny discussion. They are mature enough to know this is fiction. Okay, this is terrible, but there's also something weirdly hot about it, and angst is hot. I still remember going with a friend of ours to see episode 3, and she got out of it and said, Anakin is hot. And basically said, yeah, angst is really hot, you know, so. And in episode 3, yeah, he kind of was, but.
They made him work out just so he could be fried bologna at the end, but heck.
Well, it was the shirtless scenes earlier on that really were, you know, the kind of tasty thing. But at the same time, though, you have people that could look at a fictional relationship and say, "Oh yeah, this is terrible." You know, my mother, you know, watched Transformers with us, you know, when we were younger, and could articulate that, you know, Megatron and Starscream had, you know, the dynamic of a bad marriage. You know, that Cyclonus and Galvatron, you know, Cyclonus was horribly codependent at the very least. She could spot that in fiction, but couldn't do it to save her soul in real life. And so you have people that are aware enough and people that are not. It really has nothing to do with the fictional franchise itself. It's just how perceptive are people.
People would always say, doesn't playing video games make the person more violent? No. I mean, I can play Halo, Call of Duty all day. I don't actually want to be in the combat situation. That would be freaking horrifying. I wouldn't actually want to have to kill someone. That would suck. But when it's pixels on a screen, yeah, I can indulge in the power fantasy.
If violent video games made you kill people, there would be no one left in my hometown. No one. Because all of you people are assholes.
You know, I think probably the most influence that we can point to a video game for real life for you is, and probably me too, is at my grandmother's funeral when they start playing Ave Maria, and you and I are thinking of
like in Hitman, you know?
Yeah, we're thinking of that trailer for Hitman.
Yes.
And you and I are sitting trying not to laugh in the middle of a funeral because we're thinking of a video game.
Because that movie started up and I instinctively started checking exits.
Or the song, yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, okay, hold up. It's church. Of course, knowing that the final scene of one of the games is at a funeral didn't help. You know?
Yeah, but we're still able to separate reality from fantasy.
Well, I think there's a lot of people who...
Yeah.
It's weird. The people who tend to be the most accusatory of people not being able to separate reality from fantasy are the ones who aren't actually able to do that. Who are the ones who don't get, no, it is just a story. It doesn't really have any influence on the people watching it.
Or I'm going to even posit this. It may be that they don't have enough imagination to be able to let go enough to indulge in the fantasy.
Yeah.
And there is only reality, and what's make-believe is not even it's non-existent. You can't even step in that world long enough to get comfortable. Whereas those of us that are fans of something have enough imagination, enough mental flexibility to kind of step in that world for a minute.
But getting back to what you were talking about with women who are attracted to the bad boys, it's more has less to do with, you know, they find them alluring sexually. It has more to do with, well, that can be part of it.
It can be.
But it's also mostly they identify with them because they're both others. So let me ask you this: doesn't it get kind of disheartening though to see these rebels, these ones that are going against the grain, constantly getting at the end of the episode getting their faces kicked in?
Well, the funny thing is, and I can't answer for everyone, but I can answer for myself. Because as a kid with no self-esteem, with, you know, I didn't realize that, you know, yeah, I dealt with bullies at school, and then I went home and I had 2 bullies that were my legal guardians. I actually kind of identified with that. I appreciated the fact that, you know what, yeah, they're the bad guys, but no matter how many times, you know, Optimus Prime hands it to them, they crawl off, but they pick themselves back up, and next episode they're at it again. They don't give up. Starscream never gave up. And even after getting blown to bits in the movie, he still found a way, as a ghost, to wreak havoc on the other Decepticons, and at that point, he had kind of an axe to grind with all of them. And so I appreciated that. And see, what was great for me with Transformers, you know, at the end of that that one episode where he gets his body back from Unicron. See, in Beast Wars, they treated it like, oh, well, he was dead, still. Well, that's because, and I happen to know this, because at the time, the writers for Beast Wars had not been given any backstory on G1. They went on to the alt.toys.transformers group and asked people there for input, so that they had something they could go on. They could make references to the original series. All they had was what fans were telling them. And so I knew that, you know, when they wrote that episode with Starscream, it was kind of informed by what a lot of the fans were saying, and they were drawing from not just, you know, the original cartoon, but also the comic and, you know, other things like that. And so they were aware that at the end of Ghost in the Machine, Starscream's blasted off into space, you know, and you have Cyclonus. Wait a minute, since when do ghosts tumble helplessly out of control through space? He's alive at that point, but you don't see what happens to him. And some of the writers have said that had they gone on to make more of a season 4, he was going to come back. And so they left off with that point, you know, well, Starscream's out there somewhere. And I really appreciated that. That meant that he got away. Starscream got away. He's still at large. And, you know, that's why he's my hero. You know, in that sense. I would describe it as kind of like a Byronic, as in the writer Byron, you know, an anti-hero. Because like Don Juan, you know, that was, his character was not a morally upright character, but he was the protagonist, and he was, you know, the hero of, you know, that novel, and that's kind of how I saw Starscream.
Cool.
So I guess if you get the chance to talk to girls in fandom anywhere, be it Star Wars, Transformers, or Halo, or, you know, not Halo, Warhammer, or Gundam.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the girls are into Xeon for some reason. But I guess I know why now. Plus, I think they prefer the more Baroque designs of the Xeon mobile suits.
Oh yeah, that's right. The aesthetic is another part of it too. And the funny thing is, you know, especially you look at Transformers, and what are most of the Autobots colored in? They're colored in, you know, reds and yellows and bright colors, and then the Decepticons are more of your blues and purples and blacks and all that. You know, so you get more of an aesthetic. And I think Darren, you had mentioned something about that with the
Star Wars fans.
Mhm.
When I talk to female fans, whether it be, but especially in this case since you mentioned it, Star Wars, the first thing that comes to mind is how much they talk about loving the aesthetic of the bad guys when it comes to cosplay and how they can adapt it for themselves. I have seen so many amazing cosplayers for either side, Rebel or, the Empire, that do just an amazing job. I honestly think I've seen a lot of cosplayers in the last 25 years, and I think the girls outdo the guys every single time.
In summation, there are a lot of reasons why girls like villains, and if you're smart, then you've got to be loose enough to roll with that and maybe indulge us a little bit. Right, Darren?
And participate. It works. Trust me.
You're not going to give us Starscream?
And what, my dear, would you like me to say other than it's been the time of my life and I would do it all again?
See.
Thanks, folks.
Remember to like and subscribe. Share with friends. That's right. Starscream says, subscribe or else. See you next time.
Toodles.
Cannot believe what I'm seeing.